All right, well, we're on holding by Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers, that is known. Again, while we're on holding by Pirke Avos, ethics for our fathers, we are in chapter Mishna 14, part 12. All right, we're still working our way through this Mishnah, and we spoke last few weeks about someone who borrows and doesn't repay. Right? We said one who borrows doesn't repay. In the name of Rabbi Shimon, is as if they had borrowed from God, from the omnipresent, right? As it says, wicked one borrows, does not repay, righteous one is gracious and gives. So we saw before, people are not necessarily, that malicious where, someone is going to borrow money, someone's going to borrow money and, definitively say they're not going to pay it back. Right, things happen. People get stuck. Whatever it is. The whole question we spoke about Rabbeinu Yonah. If a person has no idea how they're going to repay, right? We really shouldn't borrow money. Sometimes we get, a person will get in situations, not necessarily beyond their control, whatever. They're in certain situations. And that happens. We're not doing it maliciously. We're not doing it to fool somebody, per se. But, it happens, right? It definitely can happen. So the last part of the Mishnah here says, on that part, it says the wicked one borrows, does not repay, but the righteous one is gracious and gives. Now, the question is, what does that mean? What does it mean? What does that mean that the righteous one is gracious and gives? So it comes along the first Israel. There's first Israel, one of the great commentaries on the Mishnah. And he explains like this. He says that each person, right, we have obligations. Person the Kohen, they have more obligations. Person the Levi, or Levite, they have different obligations. Right? Definitely different obligations to Kohen. Et cetera, different obligations to Israel, but everybody has obligations. Men have obligations. Women have obligations. There are things they're exempt for because they're not bound. They're not bound by mitzvahs that are bound by time. All right, but according to Ashkenazic tradition, they'd be allowed to make a blessing on it. Let's say shaking a lulav, sitting in a sukkah. Right, by Sephardic tradition, they hold that they don't make a blessing in such a thing. Right, because it's bound by time. So here, first row says, first thing is that everyone's got obligations. We all have obligations. We cannot shirk responsibility. We all have obligations what to do. Yeah, so the obligation means over here, not just by mitzvahs, not just what God commands us, right? We have other things. We have to be moral. Yeah. Many other things we need to do as well. But in this case, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? It says it's first Israel. Talking about obligation means what they owe or they have to give someone else. Specifically. Right? In other words, it says over here, a righteous one who is gracious and gives. Yeah, we all have obligations. We all have judgments. Right? God judges every one of us. We all have judgments as well. But here we're talking about something very specific. The judgment is, or the obligation is, let's say better, person owes money. They owe something to someone else. Money, an object, they borrowed, whatever it is. They have an obligation to give it back. Now, what are judgments over here? Judgments are what others owe them. See, we can look at it on both sides of the coin. Let's say Reuven owes Shimon, I don't know, we'll say he owes him money, right? We'll make it easy. He owes him money. Yeah. At the same time, Levi is owed money by Yitzchak. So two different things going on here. In one case, we see that Reuven owes Shimon money, or if I said Shimon owes Reuven money, whatever it is. But on the other hand, you got Levi, who is owed money by Yitzchak. So it's one thing you owe money to someone else, okay? It's another thing someone owes something to you, whether it's money, it's an object, right? Whatever it is. So says it's first row over here. What are we talking about? What are these judgments? Where someone owes you something. Now the righteous person over here, it says it's gracious and gives. What does it mean he's gracious? It says it's first row, a person gives in to the other person of what they owe them. They overlook what they owe them. Now, does that mean they don't owe them the money? No. They owe them the money. Right? They owe them the money. But what's the explanation here? The explanation is they look the other way. In other words, person borrowed a lawnmower. He's supposed to give it back within a week, let's say. Supposed to give it back in a week. So Shimon owes a lawnmower. You might think Reuven's going to breathe down his throat. Weeks gone by. Says I need the lawnmower. Right? Breathing down his throat over here. Now, let's say Reuven comes to him before the end of the week. And, or let's say better, Shimon owes him the lawnmower. So Shimon comes to Reuven. And Shimon says, I still got work to do, etc. I need some more time. So Reuven should be gracious. You give him more time. Right? You give him more time. Now, what if Reuven really needs it? He could demand it. Say, listen, I gave it to you for a certain amount of time. I need it now. I'll give it back. So he's got a right. Can't say, give me some more time. That's being cruel. No. He allowed you to borrow the lawnmower. Okay. He allowed you to borrow the lawnmower. Very good. He wants it back. So you're going to return it. Now, I would say on Reuven, when Shimon borrows it, Shimon says he needs more time, give more time. Right? A person should give him more time. If he needs. Endless amount of time? I don't know. I don't know the person's patience. Right? I wouldn't say endless amounts of time. Right? But, if you can do without it, give him time. You give him time over here. Right? So now, what does it mean over here? That what other people owe you, the righteous person gives in, gives them more time, gives them more opportunity. Doesn't mean you have to be abused over here, but you give more time. Yeah, so in other words, they're going to look the other way or give someone more of an opportunity to give what they have to pay them or what they owe them instead of demanding it. Now, technically speaking, the time period's up, whether it's a week, it's a month, 6 months, whatever it is. The time period's up. Could Reuven demand from Shimon, give me back the lawnmower? Yes. He can demand it. He has a coming to him. Or whether it's money or whether it's anything else, he could demand it. 100% he could demand it. But what's the better way? The better way is you give him more of an opportunity. You give him more time. The person's going to say, but I really need it now. Okay. At the end of the day, we should not demand it. Doesn't mean, this goes on forever. Doesn't mean that. But at the same time, there are laws governing this. And if someone, let's say, had a debt, they had a debt to someone else. That person, if they come in contact with them, just they're in the same place or whatever, the other person's going to be embarrassed. Why is the other person going to be embarrassed? Because he owes the money. He knows he owes the money. Right? So that person he owes the money to should be careful not to be seen in places where he is. It's not to embarrass him. You're going to say, what do you mean? Doesn't he owe the money? He owes the money. Don't I have a right? Doesn't the person have a right to demand it? Sure. He's got a right to demand it. Even if he's got a right to demand it, at the end of the day, person should let it go. Doesn't mean it goes on forever. Yeah, you give him a chance to pay it back. Tell them if you need more time, give you more time. Yeah, they gave them money because they didn't need it. Yeah, again, if they're in dire straits, they need it back. The person should pay it back if they have it, 100%. Right, but a person shouldn't demand it. Right, there are ways to go about it. Is it within their right? Sure. It's in their right. To demand it. But a person, in the back of their mind, if someone's going to have difficulty over here, whatever it is they have to return, should give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, maybe they forgot, maybe, I don't know. Any number of things could have happened. Any number of things could have happened where we have to give them a chance. It could be an onus, it could be other things. Who knows? But a person will say, do I have an obligation over here to be taken advantage of? No. That you don't have an obligation. For sure not. People will say, if that would be the case, it just goes on seemingly forever, then yeah. Well, what did we say before? Person borrows something, they don't give it back. No one's going to let them, borrow anything. It makes sense. If there's onus, even if something happens beyond their control, okay, to a limit. Right? So the question over here is, how far does it go? How far does it go? Is it forever? Is it why it's just, overlooking whatever? Someone told me a story, borrowed money from someone, had to pay it back. The person came and said, listen, you got lucky. Right? Well, what was the luck that they had? And the person they borrowed from says, forget it. Loan's forgiven. You don't have to worry about it. No, the person had the money. They said, listen, I had the money, let me pay it. They say, no. Can a person forego it? Sure. Is it common someone to forego it? Not necessarily. A person doesn't have to do that. Person lends someone, an object, or money, they can, they didn't give it out forever. They didn't give it out not to get it back. But a person shouldn't demand it. Time's coming up to pay it. True. 100%. They can send out a reminder. So listen, week's coming up. You owe this, you owe that. You should give it back. Just, a friendly reminder. That's okay. That's not demanding. That's not demanding. The person, under other circumstances, they can ask, can I have an extension or something. A person can say no. A person can say that. I mean, not so nice, but they can say it. Why? Then you have a certain amount of time. You're supposed to come. I want it back. They can do that. Again, we're talking about a case where someone demands it, and they do it not in a nice way. Right? Let's say. Again, does that mean they don't deserve the money? No. Business is like that. Someone, I don't know, you do services for somebody. They say you're going to pay you an X amount of time. Okay. Now what happens when that time passes? You can remind them. You can't demand. You could, in theory. Right? Not that, I shouldn't say that. Shouldn't say you can't. You could. You can say, listen, you owe me the money. Pay it. I don't care what's going on in your life. Pay it. Person can do that. Right? It's coming to them. Now, again, it's like walking a tightrope in a certain way. Because on the one hand, you helped out a person. You want to be compensated. You want to give it back what you gave out. On the other hand, you also want to have mercy. You can't judge a person unless you've been in their shoes. So you don't know what's going on. They say, well, it's irresponsible for them to do that. Maybe. We spoke about that. Sometimes people get stuck, whatever it is. They seem to have no choice. You they have to find a way to pay it back, right? Whatever it is, or whatever they borrow, so to speak. So therefore, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to look the other way. Right? It's an opportunity to say, okay, you're right. You owe me this object. You owe me this money. Okay, I'll give you more time. You need more time. I'll give you more time. Because other thing, anything can happen in between. No question. So you give a person more time. Does that mean you're being taken advantage of? No. It means you have mercy. You have mercy on someone. Again, remember one thing. We can't judge someone unless we've been in their shoes. So you're going to say, a person should have done this, should have done that, right. Should have done a lot of things. They didn't. In the end, they didn't. You want to get in their face. You want to shake them down and say, okay, what happened over here? I mean, you can do that. That's going to be real embarrassing for the other person. On the other hand, you don't say, I deserve it back. True. You got to be very careful. You got to be very, very careful. Over here. So, you should look the other way instead of demanding it. According to the law, could you demand it? You can demand it. We're not saying you can't. Yeah, it's better not to. Again, the person's going to say, but I don't want to be taken advantage of. Also true. Also very true. Right? Okay, so give yourself a limit. So yeah, I'll give you another 2 weeks, let's say. You give him another month. But you can make clear at the end of the month, the end of this time, I need it back. I need this thing back. But we should be more gracious. That's what he's saying. Because the Mishna says the righteous are gracious and give. Gracious means you overlook what the other person's done. Why? Because they're looking the other way. And they also realize, and this is something I think people have difficulty with. Probably have a lot of difficulty with this. And that is, what do I have over here? What do I have over here? Essentially, what I have is, person's looking the other way. Okay. Now, person's looking the other way. So the other person, again, borrow the lawnmower. Told him he's going to get back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks come by, doesn't get back. Says, yeah, if you need more time, fine. Another month goes by. Now your backyard's like a jungle, so you really need it. Right? So now you ask him, but listen, I really need it. So yeah, I'll give it to tomorrow. They keep pushing you off. Now at this point, person loses patience. Understandable. Before they said, okay, I'll give you more time. You can have it for longer. Okay. Can understand. I'll give you more time. But then you said, when I gave you more time, I really need it back at this time. Right? I really need it back now. At that time, whatever it is. And the person says, yeah, I'll give it to you tomorrow. I'll give it, they seem to push you off. Now, one way of looking at it, which probably most people won't, is that what can a person think? This person should be giving me what I need. I lend it to them, give it back. They're not thinking in terms of what's going on in the other person's life. They're thinking about themselves. So you're going to say, wow, I should think about the other person. I shouldn't think about myself. Because the Mishna says, the world's created for me, not for anyone else. You could say that. It's all about me. You have to return it, okay? But there's something there where probably most people don't think. They don't think about what's that. There's a big X factor. What's the big X factor? Big X factor is that God's giving you a golden opportunity to work on self-love, patience. You're going to say, but I really need it. Okay. He's giving you an opportunity to work on patience. Didn't God put this person in your life for some reason? You're helping that person, okay? You did the mitzvah of chesed, of acts of loving kindness. You helped them, very good. Let's say that person has to return it, okay? Well, let's say the fact the person doesn't or delays. How much does the person say, I'm willing to look the other way for X amount of time or this and that, right? And then that time period passes. So you're going to say, I don't have to be I don't have to be a shmata. I don't have to be a dish rag over here. I don't have to be, I deserve it back. You're right. 100% right. But how many people are going to say, well, why is God doing this to me? Obviously, doesn't the person see I need it? Doesn't the person see? Doesn't see the person, doesn't the person see that, it's coming to me? Doesn't he see it? Don't you think that's the case? The person can say it's rightfully mine. Totally rightfully mine. Right? No question. So a person's got to be careful and protect themselves. Because if you don't protect yourselves, then you're open, to other people. They're going to take advantage. Which makes sense. On the other hand, people aren't there necessarily to take advantage. It's a general rule unless proven otherwise. Right? The general rule, what we call chazaka. What's a chazaka? Chazaka means in Talmudic logic, it means that if a person has believability, unless we know other things, he has believability. If we know in other cases, the person doesn't have believability, or we catch them on different things, that's a different issue. Then we call that's called the reyusa. That's something that drops the person down a number of levels. Why? Why does it drop them down? Because now something's happened for us to question. Now we're going to question the person. We're going to question their integrity. Yeah. Otherwise, if I have no reason to question the integrity, we don't. That's a Talmudic dictum, in just about everything. It comes to testimony. It comes to, believability in so many different ways. So many different ways. If I have a doubt and I have good reason to have a doubt, I have to check it. Yeah. If someone knows somewhere down the line in their family there was a quasi-conversion, that you got to check. That 100% you got to check. Why? How do you know the conversion was done right? Right? You got to check it. Why? Because now I have something, a radius to mean something bad. I have something bad here. That's when I know something is bad or questionable. If I don't know it, if I don't know it's bad or questionable, I don't have any reason to think otherwise. Right? In other words, someone comes into court, we'll make it easy. Someone comes into court to testify, whatever it is, on a bill of divorce or on a document, let's say between two people, a marriage, whatever it is. If this person comes in front of us, we don't know anything about the person. We don't know anything about the person. Can the person testify? Why not? The person can testify. Why is the person allowed to testify? Because I don't have any evidence against him. In other words, if another witness comes in, contradicts what this witness said, now I got a problem. Now I have to see somebody's lying. Or whether, are both of them saying similar things. Yeah, someone says they thought the document was done on the 1st of the month. Someone says on the 3rd of the month. Yeah, that's okay. That we would accept. Why? Because people can make a mistake in Rosh Chodesh, right? In the first day of the new month. Maybe, maybe it's not the first day of the new month. Maybe it's the last day of the last month, and then The next day of Rosh Chodesh is the first day of the month. Whatever, people can make mistakes. People can make mistakes in that. So therefore, that testimony would be good. Oh, but someone said now it's the middle of the month, and someone says the beginning of the month. No. Now that's a problem. Why? Person's not going to make that kind of mistake. Not going to be that kind of big discrepancy. So someone obviously is lying, right? So therefore, when I know something to be true, and there's now a contradiction, now I have to investigate. I have to investigate further. If both said the same thing, they both said, yeah, this document was written on the first of the month. Okay. Do I have any reason to suspect one of them is lying? No. Could they both be lying? There's a case. Case Torah says, calls them Eidim Zomimim. What does Eidim Zomimim mean? They're false witnesses. So in other words, how do we know they're false? Because other witnesses come and contradict them. They say, hey, how could you say it was that day? You were with us on this day. Or you were so-and-so on that day, so you couldn't have been true what you said. And they get the same punishment they wanted the other person to get. Yeah, that's the punishment measured for measure. They testified against the person, that person's going to lose $1,000. They're now going to have to pay it. Right? Those false witnesses will have to pay measure for measure. Why? Because they're the ones trying to get the other person to pay falsely. So they're guilty. Now, if I have no reason to assume guilt, if I have no reason to think there's any funny business going on over here, there's no reason. I don't have to look for problems. He mentions many times. Yeah, you don't look for problems unless the problems are there. I don't have to look. And again, there's a myriad of examples. It applies across the board. Across the board. Yeah, whether it comes to, prayer, whether it comes to loss of damages, marriage, divorce, all kinds of things. Sacrifices. Purity and impurity. Give an example, another example by Shechita. Yeah, ritual slaughter. Right? Person knows what they're doing. Right? Ritual slaughterer, they put the knife in. They kill the animal. Right? The animal dies. What happens? What happens? Then now they check the knife afterwards before they're going to check again. Or maybe a few animals later, they check the knife, whatever it is. And now they find a nick. Now they find a nick in the knife. So now I got a problem. Right? Now I got a problem. When did this happen? Did it happen, with the last two animals that were killed? What about before that? So now I got to reuse it. Now I got something that's going to knock this down. Because now I have a serious question. And there are serious ramifications. Maybe the animals before that were killed are kosher, but the ones, the last one maybe isn't. Or we say, no, maybe they're all not. We have major doubt here. Major doubt. When I have a major doubt or even a minor doubt, I got to clarify. I have to clarify. If I don't have a doubt, do I have to clarify? Why do I have to clarify? Person comes in to testify, right? We'll use testimonial here. Person comes in to testify. Why do I have to assume they're lying? I don't have to assume they're lying. I don't have, unless something else in this process proves it. Another witness comes in, seems to contradict, or not say exactly the same thing, which, maybe it's close enough, maybe it's not close enough. But now, if they both say the same thing, or similar things within reason, I don't have to assume anyone's lying here. I can assume everything's good. You look at the document's good. That's it. That's it. There's an obligation, right? Let's say better. There's a question comes up in the laws of giving testimony. There's the question of who is not allowed to testify. I would say someone who stole. Someone either stole in hiding or grabbed something from someone else, right? Whether a ganav or a goslin. or someone who lends, money with interest. A lot of cases, many, many cases, over here. So now, let's say you're giving testimony, person giving testimony, in a rabbinical court, and they know the other person giving testimony is not allowed to testify. This person is what we call pasul edus. They can't testify. They're not allowed to testify. For things they've done. For a fact what they've done. The Beis Din doesn't. Rabbinical court doesn't. But you know that your testimony is good. You have an obligation to tell the rabbinical court what this person has done in the past. And knock out his testimony or not. Now, at the end of the day, your testimony is good. So if a person knows the testimony is good, what do you have to say on the other person? And say, come on, isn't that rechilus? Isn't that tattling on the other person? Maybe. But at the end of the day, that person's not allowed to testify. Don't you have an obligation to tell the Beis Din about it? Sure. What if they didn't? Right? What if they didn't over here? Even though they know their testimony is good. Right? In such a case, you're not allowed to testify. See, there's an obligation just in general. Person knows testimony helps someone else. You have an obligation to testify. Obligation from the Torah to testify. Problem is, what if let's say, other person's a mafioso. Or someone else over there, it could be dangerous to your health. Okay, so these are questions. Shouldn't you have more faith in God? God's going to take care of your needs? Sure. But, at the end of the day, this person, is a dangerous person. But, in our case, that other person is not allowed to testify. So how can you testify? You're not allowed to testify in such a case. Because, the other person can't testify. You need two people. You need two people, the Torah says, to establish something, right? Shnei Eidim Yakum Dover, the Torah says. I need two witnesses to establish something. But I don't have two witnesses. So good. So over here, what are you doing? You're testifying as an individual. And that other individual can't testify. So how can you testify? It's like you're only testifying by yourself. If you're only testifying by yourself, so good. Right? Because what could you do now? What could you do now? Now, let's say you tell the Beis Din this guy can't be believed for whatever reason. Yeah? Beis Din says, okay. Now, what's the problem? I don't have another witness. Right? I can't establish what has been said with one witness. So what do you do? What do you do if you only have one witness? Torah says, Shnei Eidim Yakum Dover. I need two witnesses to establish. Take out money one from the other. Right? I need two witnesses. I only have one. What do you make the other person do? Swear. That's halacha. You make him swear he's telling the truth. Now, there's a problem. What's the problem? We don't allow people to swear today. Why not? We're afraid they're going to lie. We're afraid that they're not going to take it seriously. And when they don't take it seriously, there's a very severe prohibition of swearing falsely. Very, very severe prohibition should apply to a non-Jew also. Right? Even if they don't convert. Right? It's a no-I. Should apply to them also. Very, very severe prohibition. Right? So now the question is, how do you testify in such a case? The case cannot be established. If the case can't be established, what are you doing? You're making more problems. You're making more problems. But aren't you allowed to tell the Beis Din? Right? Let's say better. Don't you have an obligation to tell the Beis Din? This other person can't testify for different reasons? You have an obligation. 100% you have an obligation. Right? You don't testify in such a case. Shouldn't be allowed to testify in such a case. But again, what's the problem? This is what I want to point out. What's the problem? The problem is I have an issue here. I have an issue. The other person can't testify. If the other person can't testify, then guess what? I have a real problem here now. If the other person could testify and it would take away the problem, and I don't have any issues, very good. I don't look, again, this is the general rule. The general rule is we don't look for problems. That's a general rule. If I have a problem, if I have a doubt, it's going to be verified. It's going to be verified. Yeah. Now, in this case, there are a few questions here. I'll deal with them in a second. In this case, when a person looks the other way, he allows them to pay back later, whatever it is. He's considered righteous before God and gracious. Why? Because he's willing to accept from God. He's willing to accept that this is what God put in front of him. Person needs more time, give more time. Because this is what the trial is right now. And the trial came why? Because God put you together. Yeah, we don't look, again, we don't necessarily look at it that way. A person's going to say, he owes me the money, I'm going to pay the money. Okay, he borrowed it, or he borrowed a lawnmower, or borrowed a pen, whatever it is. I'm going to pay it back. But isn't God in charge of it? Didn't God want you to work on your self-awareness, on your, what do you call it, on your patience? Why don't you look at it that way? So over here, he sanctifies himself more. Because not only is a person happy with what they have, but they're willing to give everything for the sake of God. They understand. Things can happen. They have compassion. Does that compassion, is that infinite? I'm not going to say it's infinite, thrown out by a human being. But at the same time, they can look the other way. But they don't realize, in this case, what's the realization? What should the realization be? And this is a golden opportunity God's given you to work on patience. Chovos Levavos says explicitly in duty to the heart, the gate of emunah bitachon. We mentioned this many times, the gate of faith and belief in God. And when something happens, God uses that person, the messenger, just like you hit a dog with a stick. Person runs after the dog runs after the stick, not the person. Right? Someone caused you damage. Guess what? We're screaming at the person. Why are you screaming at the person? God put them in your path. God set them up that way. Doesn't mean the person might not be guilty. The person may for sure be guilty. It's like someone who hit your car. What are you doing? You're running out screaming at the person. Why'd you go through the stoplight? Why were you texting and you weren't paying attention? That's all true. And the person's liable. I don't think there's anything to talk about. But the Chovos Levavos says amazing thing. Amazing thing. He says you go up, hug the person, and thank them for giving you an opportunity to work on your anger. Now everyone's going to jump up and scream and say there's no possible way. There are no human beings like that today. Yeah? Good question. But the Chovos Levavos is not talking to Malchei Asharis. He's not talking to ministering angels. He says this is for everybody. A number of times the Chovos Levavos says, you might think I'm only talking to the righteous and only the super righteous. Comes on the Chovos Levavos says, no, I'm talking about everybody. They're going to say who's on that level. Very good. Good question. You read Path of the Just. Most people will get through half of it because it seems like it's not for us. Different levels, for us to try and reach seem almost impossible. Yeah. Who's he writing it for? He's not writing for the righteous. He's writing for everybody. These are high levels. It's hard. We all have work to do. We all have a lot of work to do. We don't think in these terms. We should. 100% we should. So when a person does that and looks the other way, it doesn't mean, they're just here to get stomped on. What it means is they're giving the person the other side. They're being gracious. Do they have to be? Seemingly no. They can demand the object, whatever it is. They could. He's saying when you do that, when you look the other way, you sanctify yourself more. And not only that, you overlook what someone has done. Thus, we say by Yom Kippur, God will overlook what we've done against him, measure for measure. That's a mind-boggling idea. Does this person owe you the object? Yes. Are they dilly-dallying or whatever in your mind? Yes. Do you deserve it back? Yes. Remember one thing, give them time. I get it. I'm not saying you should be abused. I'm saying give the person time. you work with them, whatever. You overlook what they've done, and they may just be in dire straits or a different thing. So you're not in their shoes, so you can't judge. But at the same time, you do that, God overlooks what you did against him. All the terrible things we do against him. So it's fair trade in a certain sense. But you're going to say it's hard though. Someone owes us something, we want it back. We deserve it back. That's true. That's 100% true. And when someone's damaged us, they're guilty. God's going to take care of them. But at the same time, God used them as a mechanism to us. He used them as a stick. How many people yelling? How many people are looking into themselves, and thinking about this and what they have to do to change and be better, and instead of yelling at the stick, that's what we should do. That's what we should do. But what are we busy doing? We think about ourselves, and we yell at the stick. Again, these are not easy things. Right? We never speak about easy things. It's not an easy thing, at all. But this is what's expected. This is what we should do. Right? Here, again, we'll make an inference in what the Mishnah here says. It says the righteous one is gracious. They can't say great. He's talking about righteous people. Can an individual become righteous? Yes. Can they do things that make them righteous? Yes. He's not talking about people already righteous. That'd be easy. So they become more righteous. Okay. He's talking about everybody else. We can do things that either make us righteous or make us wicked. Right? We mentioned last week. Over here, if someone borrows doesn't pay back, when does he transgress? The second he doesn't pay back. Do we say that at that time or even before? He doesn't know he's going to pay back. Yeah. But if he ends up paying it back, okay. Question is, when is that obligation? When is he called wicked at that point? I was just learning with people up north. Whole question about testimony. Someone is a gossip or a gun, if they stole, let's say, they or whatever, before we get to that, let's say a shochet. What the Gemara says, a tabach. What's a tabach? Someone who checked an animal, the Gemara says. Either they kill the animal, they check the animal for, make sure there are no, that's not a treifa, doesn't make it treif. They do trabering, like they do everything. So now what happens? The Gemara asks, you find an non-kosher animal by this person. So now it depends on a few things. It depends, is he eating it himself or is he giving it to others? If he's eating it himself, right, he's only doing it for his own benefits because this is cheaper than kosher meats, which is true. Yeah, very good. So he's possible. Cannot testify. Right? Absolutely cannot testify. Now, if he's doing it for others, you say, you also can't testify. It's worse. Because other people to sin. Okay. Yeah. The question is, on this and on other things, how many times the person do it? So Gemara brings on a few places. The Gemara says they have to do it twice. If they do it once, doesn't necessarily make them post. Doesn't make them forbidden to testify. If they did it twice, then we assume that, this is their, this is the personality. This is what they do. Right? You say, well, maybe they're dire straits, this and that. Could be, but, you do it once, one thing. You do it twice, okay. Right? That's it. That's it over here. So how do we look at people in general? Say what? Everyone's either righteous or wicked. I mean, righteous has a lot of different levels. A person can be considered just like a, average person, but they do a righteous act. Okay. Does that flip the script and make them totally righteous? Not necessarily. That righteous act is a huge thing. Okay. But does that bring them from here to way up here? No. If they continue to do, things like that and more, okay, that's a different issue. Or if they did it once, it might all of a sudden shoots them up. No. Right? Again, we're looking at the language here. Somebody who borrows doesn't pay, doesn't really matter why. They have the status of being wicked. We don't care why. Bottom line, didn't do it. Someone who's righteous, they look the other way. Even though we do it once, they raise themselves to be righteous. Okay, maybe other ways they're not. Right? But at the end of the day, what does he say? What does the Tiferes Israel over here say? He says he sanctifies himself more by looking the other way. Not just happy with what they have, but willing to give everything for God. They understand. Right? They understand in this case, God put them in their path. God put this person in your path. And even if they cause you damage in such a case, there's a question, why? Why did God use this person? So I can't answer, but he used this person. He used this person. Now, are we looking at those terms? No. What are we saying? You have to bring back the lawnmower. You got to give him back his pen. You have to pay him back the money, okay? Yeah, but no one's saying, oh, God put this person in my path, and now I have to look the other way, and now I have to help him more. And then who's thinking in those terms? Probably very pessimistic, not very many. See, but this is ethics. This is telling you what we should do. This is telling you how we should view things. So we got a ways to go, sure. This is an opportunity, right? Now imagine someone would come to me. I had all my money stolen, from this guy. Someone would have come to me, and someone would have said, don't you understand? This is what God wanted. This person's just a stick, so to speak. So obviously something much bigger going on. At the very beginning, that would have been very hard to hear. Almost impossible. Like going from riches to rags overnight, right? I had someone tell me, and I understand what they mean. I had someone tell me, they said, well, if you're at the bottom, the only place you can go is up. Okay, true. That's a true statement. The person didn't mean anything malicious by it. Definitely did not mean anything malicious by it. Yeah. At the same time, I know what they meant. Very, very hard to hear. Very, very hard to hear when you're on your knees. Yeah, you have no way to pay back anything. Now you're stuck up the gazoo. Never had to borrow money from people, never had to ask help from people. Very, very hard to hear. Right? It's about impossible to hear. Yeah, but the attitude is, if God were to come to me and he said, yeah, I'm going to do this, but in so many years, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, you're willing to sign off on that. Or God could have said, which he didn't, right? He didn't come to me in a dream through an angel or anyone else and say, listen, really, you deserve to die, right? For a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons. But you know what? I decided I had mercy. I've decided I'm going to put you through the ringer for a number of years. You'll come out of it eventually, in different ways. Right? Otherwise, you really deserve to die. So now, if I would have got that message, it would have been hard to hear, but in a lot of ways it would have been easier. Why? Okay, these other things, there's a time limit. Might be a long time limit, but there's a time limit. Okay. But that saved your life. God says, I'll take a bribe here. And he says, really? Your life is finished. Really? You deserve to be in the ground. But you know what? You're going to help all these people, later in the next 20 years more. You're going to do all these good things and whatever. Okay. So I took that into account. I didn't kill you, but I took everything away. Again, that would have been hard to hear, but it would have been satisfying. Why would it have been satisfying? Because there's rhyme or reason why it happens. It just happened for no reason. Well, there are plenty of things we see, we don't know. We don't understand. And God's using all these different messengers to get to us. And we're too busy running after them. Which, we should anyway. They're guilty, is no question. But at the end of the day, where'd they come from? God sent them in motion. God put them in motion. He used them as messengers. But, it's hard. So again, that's the way to look at it. That's the right way philosophically, according to Jewish philosophy, to look at it. But it's hard to hear. When a person's going through it, it's very hard to hear. Very, very hard to hear. Yeah. Years later, I could hear it. Definitely I could hear it. It took a lot of time. It took a lot of time to process certain things. Now, even if I would have known this to be true, it still would have taken time, but probably a lot less. A lot less. Someone asked me last week, you go through these things, trying to pick my brain. Well, what'd you do about this? And what'd you do about that? And how'd you feel about this? Okay. I answered as honestly as I could. Was I whistling Dixie and smiling every day? No. Sometimes things just really get to you, sure. It's normal, but just like any good book in Jewish philosophy, what are they trying to train you? And working on character traits. Character development. You're rip-roaring mad, this and that. Okay. But, if I really would have internalized the message, understood, okay. This is what happened when different reasons, this, that, whatever. And, God's the one in charge. Etc. So, okay. But, when you're going through it, it's very hard. Some people say, yeah, maybe I'm much stronger, this and that. Sometimes you didn't want to get out of bed. There are people say you have ups and downs. Hopefully more ups and downs, but it can be demoralizing. Demoralizing. I had to do things I didn't want to do. And here I had a certain level of talent. I couldn't do it the way I wanted to do it. Right? So that was a hard question I had. Why? The answer is because, it's a hard answer to hear. But what was really the answer? This is not your time. You have to do other things. And I can tell you, if I would have had, take my own advice, write 20 things I'm thankful for, I would have burned that paper and burned other things at the same time. Would not have been able to hear it. Would never have been able to hear it. But now it's different. Now it's very different. But when you're going through it, it's very hard. Right? Very, very hard. Yeah. Questions here. Let's see. Someone gives money, but that person used it for idolatry. That's a good question. Let's say somebody borrows money. Yeah, let's say. Somebody borrowed money. That money, what do they use it for? They use it for idolatry. Now, if you know they're going to use it for idolatry, and they say, listen, I need this money, I need to buy, I don't know, a bunch of crosses, a bunch of statues, a bunch of this, a bunch of that. You have money to lend them. But 100%, it has to be 100%. 100% that's what they're going to use it for. Then you can't give it to them. You're not allowed to give it to them. Yeah, if it's something where there's a doubt, maybe they'll use it for something else. They'll use it for groceries. They'll use it for, I don't know, for clothing. They'll use it to buy whatever. You have to know with real certainty. That's where the money's going. If they could use it for any number of things, and there's a major doubt that it's going to be used for that, then it's not a problem. Then it wouldn't be an issue. In other words, you gave them money, that's what they used it for. But you had no idea they're going to use it for that. If you didn't have any idea they're going to use it for, that's a different issue. If you know someone's a drug addict, and the money you're giving them is using for drugs, that you can't. Tough love. That's what you have to have. You can't give it to them. I remember once, there was a homeless person asking for money. So a friend of mine said, I'll go buy you a bagel. I'll buy you something to eat. It's like, no, I want money. So you want to give it. You don't want to give him a few bucks. You're going to use it for other things. If you're really hungry, I'll buy you something to eat. No, I want to, whatever. I want to use it for other things. But you want. So that's the question. If you know for sure they're using it for idolatry, that's a problem. If there's a doubt what they're using it for, you don't have to worry. You got to tell me what happens in the end. They use it for idolatry. Different issue. Right? Sorry, that doesn't matter. If they would tell you 100% I'm using this money for idolatry, you can't give it to them. No matter how much they need it, no matter what they say to you. You're not allowed to give it to them. Right? That would be forbidden. Somebody asks, is it Lashon Hara when you talk about someone who's an idol worshiper but ignorant? I think most idol worshippers are ignorant, right? Especially Christians. Most of them don't know anything about their own religion. You got Bible thumpers, but they're all misguided, right? They're all misguided. Can I make fun of idolaters? Yes. Can I make fun of them whenever I want? Yes. And what if they're ignorant? You can also make fun of them, right? What about a Jew? What about an ignorant Jew? Today, most Jews are ignorant. Can I make fun of them? I will make fun of them. If they take themselves out of being a Jew, let's say they desecrate Shabbos in public. So they lose their status as a Jew unless they repent. Or they go against any of the 13 principles of the Rambam without repentance. So now they're not doing what we call Ma'isa Amcha. They're not doing the actions of our people. So what happens to them? That's non-Jews. Can I speak about non-Jews? Right? Hope no non-Jews are listening. Right? Can I speak Lashon Hara against non-Jews if I want? Sure. What Chaim says, you're allowed to. You're allowed to. Now, he cautions you. He cautions you into thinking, though it's permissible, you don't want to do it. Because then you get into bad habits. Even if there's a technicality, it's not forbidden. You may forget to speak Lashon Hara against a non-Jew, against a Jew. Yeah. So you don't want to get in the habit in general. But if there's a point, and a person's making a point, you're allowed to. Right? Again, someone's going to call me on and say, hey, the laws of Lashon Hara say I can speak about idolatry as much as I want. I can speak about these ignorant people as much as I want. That's true. Right? That's the essence of the law, 100%. But at the end of the day, who says it's good for me? Depends why you're doing it. You want to warn people against such people, okay. But, I see this all the time. We have some people who can barely speak Hebrew and they're already out trashing people. They're trashing different rabbis that are heretics and this and that. So let's say they aren't. Let's say for argument's sake, these people are heretics. Okay. Can I trash them as much as I want? In theory, yeah. I don't have an issue with that per se. Is there anything wrong with it? You want to warn other people? You want to speak how they're heretics? Okay. I don't know if they have an issue with it per se. At the same time, should I be doing it all the time? I wouldn't necessarily say that. I think there's a limit. I think people have to be warned who to listen to, who not to listen to, okay? I think there's some people out there way overkill. Way overkill. Yeah, there's so many more things to focus on. Let them focus on learning Torah. Let them focus on getting positive things, not just negative. It's easy to focus on negative. That's true. That's very true. At the same time, I would say you got to be careful. Because then you might forget and say things you shouldn't say anyway about other people that you're not allowed to speak against. So someone will say, but if it's true, it's true. If I'm allowed to say it, I'm allowed to say it. You're right. Right? I'm not going to deny that. That 100% is true. My only question is, do you feel that there's an obligation to keep saying it over and over and over again, and that's all you talk about? That's a different issue. Spoke about this somebody Wednesday night, whatever, exactly this issue. Yeah, okay. We both came to the same conclusion. Exactly what we just said. You want to warn people this and that, people are heretics, you want to warn them not to listen to them, good. No one's got an issue with that. But you're saying things all the time, one after the other. Again, how much can a person listen? Okay, they got the message. Very good, they got the message. If things come up, you have to mention again. Okay. I see some people, they go berserk in this. They go absolutely berserk. I don't think it's needed. Am I worried they're going to speak Lashon against other people? Maybe not. It's just not good in general. But in general, can I make fun of idolatry whenever I want? Sure. Can I make fun of their ignorance and ignorant Jews? Sure, I can make fun of it. I do it all the time. I do it all the time. Because I want people to realize how dumb it is and what people do. Yeah, but in general, just to do it. No one's going to say, maybe the leftists will say you can't do that, but, according to the laws of Lashon Hara, be allowed to. But again, I would say there should be a limit. Even though the Chofetz Chaim doesn't necessarily say there's a limit, I can do whatever I want. He just says you got to be careful. He just says you got to be careful. Doesn't give you free reign, just do what you want. When you want, even though you could. Yeah, it's easy to make fun of. It's very easy to make fun of. It's also sad. It's also very sad at the same time. So, if you have a point to make, good. You want to make the point, you make the point. If you're just saying it to say it, there should be some benefit that why you're saying it. So again, I'm not saying you can't do it. I want to, splice this and misquote me. I'm not saying you can't do it. You can do it. Do it to your heart's content. The question is it good for you or not? And what does that mean? You're allowed to do it. Yeah, is there a limit? And even if there's no limitation, Chofetz Chaim still says you got to be careful. You still have to be careful. Someone asks why the Jewish nation is called Jacob, because the Jewish nation of Parashat Balak that we just read today, Jewish nation is called, come from Jacob, no? We're called the children of Israel, Bnei Yisrael, not the Jews of the state of Israel. State of Israel came much later. Yeah, why are they called the children of Yisrael? Who's Yisrael? Is Jacob, right? God changed his name. Angel changed his name from Yaakov to Yisrael, right? The Jewish people, they come from. How they become a nation? From Jacob. Jacob and his sons and all the tribes, right? So therefore the Torah can say, and it will say many times, instead of saying the Jewish people, the Torah will say Bnei Yisrael. Literally, the children of Yisrael. Who's Yisrael? It's Jacob. He represents the Jewish people. Everyone came out of him. Yeah. The Jews went to Egypt, 70 people. They came out tens of thousands. Millions. Right? They came to Mount Sinai. How many people came out? 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60, not including women and children. You're talking about 3 million people. Where'd they start from? Where's the lineage start from? It starts from Yaakov. Right? It starts from him and his kids. Is there any language which is forbidden to translate Torah? Is there any language? No, same way can be translated any language. There was a question if I read certain languages, am I, let's say for prayer. Let's say prayer books translated into, whatever language, doesn't matter. Turkish, Russian, Finnish, English, Spanish, whatever, Italian, French, whatever it may be. There are certain things should not be said in that translated language. In other words, it should be said in Hebrew, even if you don't understand it. Certain things should be said in Hebrew. That being the case, we do know that that the Greek language, even though it's really been lost in many ways, that if a person read certain things in Greek, they would fulfill their obligation, even according to the Torah. Yeah, that's the only language. Every other language, no. For certain things. Only by Greek, and that language been gone. Right? We don't have that language anymore. We don't have that. So therefore, yeah, can the Torah be translated? Yeah. When the Torah was translated into Greek, happened with Ptolemy Amelech, the King Ptolemy, and he took all these sages, put them in different rooms. They all translated miraculously, translated the Torah the same. They came to the same conclusion. Translated the entire Torah exactly the same. It was not a good thing, right? It was looked down upon to do. They didn't have a choice. They really didn't have a choice. But you're given a command by the king. You do what the king says. Yeah, in general. But in this case, it was not looked upon as a good thing. Definitely not looked upon as a good thing. Yeah, but at the end of the day, if you don't have translation, most people will be lost. I think a lot of people lost anyway, even with translation. But translation makes things a lot easier. Where would anybody today be without art school? Or Rabbi Dr. Scroll, what some people call it. Yeah. Where would people be without translation of Tanakh? With a proper translation of Tanakh, of Gemara, of other things. Where would people be? They'd have no access at all. They'd have zero access. So that's a huge thing. That is a huge thing. Otherwise, people wouldn't be able to learn. They would not be able to learn on their own. At the same time, we could easily say translation is not good. Because we know King James has been translated a lot of times. And most of them are bad, if not all of them. They're all bad. They're all bad translations. If it's a good translation, you have to remember it's a translation. So there are good translations out there. I'm not saying not, but at the same time, certainly better, to learn it, learn it in the original. And then plenty of things have not been translated. You have a lot of the early commentators, later commentaries, not translated at all. So how are you going to learn it? How the person going to learn it? They have to learn it. To learn the language. They have to be taught. Yeah, oral law has to be taught. Can't learn it on your own. You got these Koreans think that Jews are way up here because they learn Gemara. So they translated the Gemara into they translated the Talmud into Korean. Okay. Any Korean's gonna learn, for goodness sakes, like anybody else. If you don't have someone to teach you, just babbling in the words. They're babbling in the concepts, but they're never gonna understand it. Again, it's not about intellectual ability. People can have the highest level IQ, that doesn't matter. Yeah, you have to know how we hold and what we do and how we learn. And many, many times I've seen this. I can't even tell you. Thousands of times. People will say things and they'll make definitive statements. I'm saying people want the truth and people are learning, trying to learn. They make definitive statements. They make serious mistakes. They make serious mistakes because they don't know. They're missing information. They're missing tons of information. Yeah, you look at a statement that the Torah says, sometimes you can take it at face value, right? But there are many, many ramifications, right? I'll give an example. The Torah says, one of the 10 commandments you can't kill. And you can say, okay, next verse, right? Let's go into something new. But what does don't kill mean? What if it's almost like, can I put it out of its misery? What about euthanasia? Yeah, putting the person out of their misery or out of your own misery. You don't want them to suffer too much. Is that murder? Or what if you're defending yourself, you end up killing someone you didn't have to. Defending yourself, you're allowed to. Yeah, but you could have taken them down. You didn't have to kill them. You end up killing them. Yeah, and it's not self-defense. That could be murder. So the Torah needs definitions. But there are a lot of different ways to look at things. There are a lot of different ramifications. I mentioned something easy. There are plenty of things extremely complex, right? And sometimes, I'll speak to people and I'll say something, And like they'll say, it doesn't make sense, or I'm missing something. So then I have to go back and explain other things behind what was said. So there could be 3, 4, 5, 7 steps the person missed. I'm just telling you at the end of the day why the law is what it is, or what it is. And again, let's say I got it right, but a person says, but doesn't resonate, doesn't make sense. Okay, what's missing? What's missing is the person's understanding, right? That's the case we said before. Someone comes to give testimony in a rabbinical court. Do we have any reason to assume the person, is not allowed to testify? No. Now, 2 people come in. Yeah, they're brothers. Can they testify together? No. That they're not allowed because they have biases. Okay. What about 2 converts? This came up in one of my classes. What about 2 converts? 2 people, 2 brothers that converted. Yeah. Are they related? Are they related? You say, you're right, they're blood related. 100% they're blood related. Okay. Right? But we hold someone who converts Kekatan Shanoa Adami, they're like a newborn baby. So technically they're not related. So if they're not really related spiritually, they can testify together. Right? Mind-boggling idea, but they're related by blood. You're right. And certain blood relatives cannot testify together. It depends how close they are. You could have great-grandparents. No? You could testify. Right? Or maybe even a grandparent. Right? Depends. Or a grandchild, whatever it is. Right? These things have to be understood. Why if you go 2 generations up or 2 generations down, depending, or through marriage, why someone's good, someone's not good. Okay, it has to be learned. You have to remember, this is Torah Elohim. This is the Torah of God himself. It's complex, extremely complex. What a person has to learn going through conversion, is like going through a cakewalk. Okay, you have to understand how to keep the laws of Shabbos, how to keep kosher. A lot of the laws are confusing. True. Very true. But if you would go soup to nuts from, exactly where it comes from and how you learn it out and this and that, it could take you 10 years to convert. Right? A lot of this is complex, but you're getting the bottom line. For this, you need this. For that, you need that. Okay, you need background why. It's very important to understand why. Sometimes, sometimes God said it, we do it, that's it. They don't really get that much background. You have to try and understand to the best ability. And there's a level of frustration, which I do understand. There's a level of frustration where people say, yeah, but that's what the Torah says. Okay. That's what the Torah says. Very good. Now, you want to hear what Allah has to say? Because you're missing a lot. You're missing a number of steps. The Torah says, a good example we just brought up. The Torah says you're not supposed to speak badly against others. You're not supposed to speak Lashon Hara. Very good. So you're not supposed to speak Lashon Hara. What are the laws of Lashon Hara? What does it mean? Right? And what if it's true? Am I allowed to repeat it if it's true? People say, of course, everybody knows it. Yeah, no. Even if it's true, you're not allowed to repeat it. Right? It's also Lashon Hara. But the Torah doesn't give me any definitions. Right? And it's complex. So this is where frustration sits in. Because, okay, there's a lot to learn, true. But then people will make things like, no, it can't be because of this and that. But you're missing other points. And when you miss other points, you have to have a lot of subletters. You have to have patience. Because when a person's first starting out, I don't care if they're learning for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't really matter. There's so much information they don't need. They don't know. They don't know. I'm not saying you can't ask questions. You can ask questions as much as you want. That's fine. But, people tend to get extremely frustrated when they forget things or when they see what they said something, obviously not so straightforward. But they're passionate about, oh, it can't be this, can't be that because of different reasons. What they're looking at in their own logic is not Torah logic. We read on a fast day. We read the Haftorah on a fast day. Yeah, coming up this week on Thursday, 17th of Tammuz, right? At Mincha. In the afternoon service, we read this Haftorah and God says, my ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Right? Let's repeat that. My ways are not your ways, my thoughts are not your thoughts. So that means the person has to eat a little bit of humble pie and realize there's a lot of information you don't know why you haven't been exposed. I mean, that's okay. A person hasn't been exposed. It's good to ask questions. But remember, not every question has a one-line answer. Some do. Some things are, more obvious than others. Other things, I have somebody on a regular basis ask me extremely complex questions. That don't, that's difference of opinion among commentaries. But I'm talking about deep questions. A lot of it's, probably steeped in Kabbalah. How to understand the soul, and is the soul really us? Or not, or whatever. Deep questions, a good question, right? I'm saying I have all the answers. Some, a lot of it, a lot of commentaries speak about it in different ways. Okay. But there's a ton of information. So, I'll tell people, ask whatever you want. You have to have patience, because not everything is so straightforward. Someone asked me a question in ethics, right? This is, so we're talking about ethics. Someone asked a fundamental question that, like, across the board, okay, the Holy Bible says like this, or the ways the right to say something else, and you got the Rabbeinu Yonah is looking at it in a different way, or maybe similar, just a caveat. Right? I'll give you one example. The Rambam says the mitzvah of repentance. Yeah, the mitzvah of repentance, when he writes the laws of repentance, is the mitzvah of vidui. What's vidui? Confession. So what is it? Is it one mitzvah or two mitzvahs? Is the mitzvah of confession part of repentance? Is it part of tshuva in general? Or is it two separate things? So yeah, disagreement between the Rambam and Shari Tshuva and Rabbeinu Yonah. According to one, they say, no, it's one and the same. In other words, if I didn't do vidui, if I didn't confess for whatever person did wrong, yeah, then you'll get repentance. Then you're lacking in repentance, right? And the other will say no. They'll say, no, you get repentance, you just didn't do it fully, right? In other words, one's going to say, you didn't get anything, you didn't do anything. The other said, you did something, you did it halfway. Big difference. But these are fundamental questions. I'm not saying don't ask fundamental questions. These are complex. They don't have one-line answers, right? A lot of times take 20 minutes to explain it, or half an hour to give different examples of different things. But everyone, most people today want everything instantaneous. I want an answer now. I want to understand it now. But there could be also, there are things you're missing, which you're not really going to understand fully, but you get an idea. Okay. You chalk it up to experience. Everything we learn is a building block, and you get information later. Sometimes the questions don't go away fully. Someone asked, what should Noah guide look like for community for conversion? So we don't have, there are only a handful of Noahide communities out there. If a person's in the process of conversion, and they're going to move to a community, there are no Noahide communities. I mean, very few. You're looking at a Jewish community. Yeah, if you're in the process of conversion. So you're going to look for a Jewish community, right? That's my assumption what you meant. Because, a person who decides they want to convert, if they decide, even if they're not accepted by a rabbinical court, but they decide they want to convert, they want to go through the process, they want to learn what they're obligated to do. So when you're looking at a community, you're looking at a Jewish community, not a non-Jewish community. And there are only a handful of non-Jewish communities in the world, that exist, no-Noahide communities. I mean, trying to help that. But in general, you're going to look for a place that has a Jewish community, as an Orthodox Jewish community, not a Noahide community, right? So if that's what you meant, that's my assumption. Then, a person has to see what the most important thing, and I have a video on my YouTube channel, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, looking at, it's about trying to find a Jewish community. Yeah, and what the different Orthodox communities look like. Anywhere between modern Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, Chabad, Hasidim, and anywhere in between. We're not going to include, Reform and Conservative because, we don't hold by them, in what they do. But there are different communities that have different philosophical outlooks, because of philosophical outlooks, there'll be a difference how you dress. Right? You want to live in a black hat community. Okay, so you wear a white shirt like this, black pants with or without pinstripes, dark blue with or without pinstripes, and dark gray or even lighter gray with or without pinstripes. That's about it. Blue also, right? That's about it. You're not wearing, bright colors, so to speak. That, a person wants to fit in. That's what they'll wear. Whether they wear a hat, they don't wear a hat. A person, wear a jacket or a suit, whatever it is. So non-Orthodox community is totally different. They're not going to have a black yarmulke on their head. They'll probably have a, maybe, black suedes. Maybe it's a, what we call a kippah sruga, a knitted yarmulke, so to speak, and they dress differently. Even on Shabbos, they dress differently. Some will wear, white shirts, some won't. Maybe they wear blue shirts or whatever. Again, this is like external things, which someone's going to say, well, shouldn't get caught up in externals, which we mentioned many times. But that's true. At the same time, if a person wants to fit in the community, you have to dress the way they do. You don't want to stand out, right? You want to find a community that, that stresses the values that you think are most important, right? By some people, they want to identify with the community, where a lot of people there stay to learn most of the day, right? Some other people say, okay, I can't do that. Let's say, only learn, let's say, part of the day or whatever the case is, right? But they want to identify with such a place, or they want to help people. They want to help support people that do that. Orthodox community will say, learning's important, but, secular education is also important. Yeah, get a secular degree, which most people hold. I shouldn't say most people. Today people have been brainwashed saying, you have to have a degree. And if you don't have a degree, you won't be able to get a job, which is totally not true. That's like one of the biggest brainwashing things going on today, right? But there'll be people that think there's a benefit in higher education in general. Again, for a job, you need higher education. Okay, right? But the end, is that the end to end all things? No, not at all. What's the most important thing? Learning Torah. Now, does that mean these people don't learn Torah? No, but they look at things differently. Going to ball games by some of these people, not a problem, right? Following sports, watching movies, other things, some are more clean, less clean. Okay. That's where the whole, they're not saying by everybody, in that community, but they look at the secular world in a totally different way. By the ultra-Orthodox, by the Hasidim, they'll say, okay, if you need a degree, you need to do these things, fine, right? But you have to know what the most important thing is. And what's the most important thing? Is learning, is Torah scholarship. So you got to find time to learn, whatever. In the modern Orthodox community, it's not true. They'll say learning is important, but if you had a choice, if you ask a parent, what would you rather have your son do? Learn for 10 years, after he's married, become a rabbi, go out to a community, whatever, be a doctor, lawyer, accountant, actuary, whatever. A lot of people would say the latter. Well, you're going to be a rabbi? Come on. Right? Get a real profession, be a doctor, lawyer, this, that. It's not a joke. That's what they hold, in many ways. So again, a person wants to identify that way, they can. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just telling you what it is, right? So you have to see where your mentality best fits in, and then you have to find a community that you'll be able to identify with. Now there are people, I know of somebody that they're having trouble fitting in. They homeschool, which, they're going to send their kids to, Jewish schools they want to convert, right? But, they're on a farm right now. Living on a farm. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, with living on a farm, but most farms are far away from Jewish communities. So someone says, I could never move to a city. Could never move to the suburbs without this, that, and the. There are going to be issues. Finding an ideal community is not so easy. And these people, very serious, this and that, looked at different communities, different things, and they're having difficulty. They're having serious difficulty. I'm trying to help them here and there, but, sometimes you have to give up things to get things. I'm not saying the system is perfect in any way, right? That, a lot of things that, need to be worked on and all that, that's true. But I would say you want to find a place where, where philosophically, you're going to fit in. And if you're going to fit in philosophically, and that, they have to see how people in that community dress. You don't want to stick out more than you have to, right? Again, a person can wear the right clothes, talk the talk, and walk the walk, and inside they're keeping very little. So it's not just about what people wear, right? We get caught up in the externals, but at the same time, if you want to fit in, there's certain things you have to do. If it's a mixed community, it's easier. You have non-Orthodox, other Orthodox, anywhere in between, but you want to fit in somewhere, and fitting in is important, because if you don't fit in, you have a lot of problems. And that's one of the hardest things today, is for people to integrate. But integrate in the way that they need to. I mean, here in Israel, it's more difficult in many ways, because a lot of it's black and white. A lot of communities, Orthodox communities are black and white. So one of my rabbis, I learned under for many years, said the most important thing is to be like everybody else. You want to fit in like everyone else. If not, they'll spit you out. And it's true. Any community be like that. A person goes to Lakewood, New Jersey, be like that. They go to, communities in New York, it'll be like that. You stick out too much. It's definitely not good. Again, I don't want to harp on people say, oh, externals. Externals is not a small thing. It's not a small thing. Yeah. And even if a person believes strong in their heart, this is the right way and this and that, you do not want to buck the system. You buck the system will spit you out. Right? I can tell you from experience in a lot of different ways. Again, I want to emphasize the way a person dresses and the way they look is not the end to end all things. There can be people dress like totally secular people. They can be more religious than most religious people doesn't dress that way, in the way they should be, let's say. Okay, right? You can't judge a book by its cover. I agree. At the same time, you want to fit in, you have to fit in. And a woman, is going to dress the way she needs to dress in any community. Yeah, she shouldn't be wearing things that are extremely bright. Certainly not red. Red's a different issue, right? But wearing like, I don't know, a blouse that's like bright yellow. Stick out like a sore thumb. Yeah. So a person's going to wear more subdued, more, we'll call it boring or nerdy clothing, because they want to fit in. You don't want to stick out like a light bulb, no pun intended. Right? Because if you do, you have serious problems. Yeah, I'm not threatening anybody. I'm not trying to curse anyone. It's a reality. People get caught up in, I have to conform to this, conform to that. Okay, if you wanted to be a fireman, let's say. You want to be a fireman, you're going to say, I'm going to wear my own equipment? I'm going to do my own thing? Or a police officer, even better. We're not defunding the police, God forbid. Right? A police officer, you're going to say, I'm not going to wear blue? I don't wear pink and polka dot? Because that's what I identify with? No, there's a standard. There's a standard of the way people dress. And it used to be, I don't think it's the same today. It used to be you work on Wall Street in New York, double-breasted suit, single-breasted suit. I don't think that's the case today. People dress more casually. Yeah. But you wanted to, let's say, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you work on Wall Street and, these lawyer firms, this and that. You're not dressing casual. You're dressing in a shirt and tie, right? Certainly if you're a guy, you're a woman, you're wearing, a skirt, a suit, whatever. That, because that's the dress code. But what's the major difference? The major difference is dress code for that is for money. That's for money. We're doing a dress code for God. That's the difference, right? So I told someone that they didn't like that. They don't like that. Because they didn't like the way I dress. I said, why do you dress that way? I said, I'll tell you like this. Person works on Wall Street, the example I gave. You got double-breasted suit, single-breasted suit. And why are they doing that? For money. When they get home, they're not wearing that stuff. The first thing they do when they get home is either turn on the TV or change their clothes, right? Either way, they're going to change their clothes because that's not who they are. They're doing it for their job. Okay. We're not doing it for our job. We're doing it because that's what God wants. On a regular basis. Big difference. Yeah, that person didn't like my answer, but okay. Right? They didn't like the fact that why dressing up? Why wearing the suit? Because that's what your boss demands. That's what that company demands. To dress up for the sake of not prestige. They're not doing it for prestige. Why they dress? They say, "Oh, we're going to look more formal and this and that," and they're busy crunching numbers, and they have different meetings and this and that. But why essentially are they doing it? For paycheck. Not popular to say. A lot of things I say not popular to say. But why is that not popular to say? Because now you're slamming someone and saying, "Yeah, people are going to dress up that way because they're doing it for money." Right? So I would tell you what. I mean, I just sort of gave you good examples, of what to look for in different communities. But take a look at my video on my YouTube channel, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, about choosing Jewish community. Right? It's about 45 minutes, give or take. 45 minutes, 50 minutes. I went soup to nuts. Non-Orthodox communities, ultra-Orthodox, Hasidic, Chabad, etc., explaining what their philosophical outlook is, and translating that into dress code. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I guess I didn't finish, came close. Maybe next week. See if I'm not 100% sure it's going to be class next week, but I'll let everyone know. I might be away next week, next Saturday night. But I just every Saturday, 2:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or on YouTube, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. There are videos on Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, Q&As, Book of Leviticus, chapter 16, controversial issues, Torah portion of the week. And I remind everyone tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time, Book of Leviticus, chapter 16. Hopefully, again, I said the last 3 weeks. Hopefully, I'm going to finish it tomorrow. Or you can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good middle of the day.